Next, under new business, a very important item in the history of Arlington Heights, amendment to the PUD ordinances for construction of a brand new police station here in the village of Arlington Heights. A long-awaited evening for all of us involved in this process, particularly the staff, and so I want to turn it over to Mr. Recklaus, as the village is the petitioner in this item.
A couple of quick comments before I turn it over to the design team. This is obviously a unique situation where the village is the applicant, but I can assure you we stand by our rules and procedures, and we are following all of the same rules and procedures in the same manner that a private business would in an application. It actually was kind of a fun process in that regard. I think a few of the departments enjoyed being able to have Charles on the other side of the table and put him through his paces. But we're very happy with how this process has gone. Charles and Deputy Chief Pecora, along with staff from police, planning, and public works, and our design professionals that we've hired, have put a lot of work into this. Have had check-ins along the way with Trustee Tenalia and Trustee Glasgow, and what we have is what we believe to be a very efficient, very functional, very cost-effective facility that we think is going to fit in nicely with the neighborhood and serve our police department for decades to come. But with that, I will turn things over to Charles, who will kick things off.
Thank you. Good evening again. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about the police station, a very, very exciting project. With me this evening, I have Deputy Chief Nick Pecora, who will be talking a little bit about some of the space needs in the facility. Also Mark Rohde and Steve Bly with Leggett Architects. We also have Chris Seifert with Riley Construction and Kevin Martre with Mackey Consultants, our engineer. So we did go before the Plan Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval of the plan unit development and these three variations. The first one is from the village's parking requirements. The second one is to reduce the drive aisle width of one driveway in the rear of the parking facility behind the building. And then the third one is to not provide one landscape island. And I will talk about those as we go through our presentation. We do want to provide a good presentation to the board and the public so everybody understands all the studies and detail that's gone into this, but we'll be more succinct than we were at the Plan Commission hearing. We have been studying village space needs for the past 20 years. In 2006, we actually designed a small addition to the rear of the police building. The village board at that time decided not to move forward with that in a piecemeal approach and to do a comprehensive study of the police station needs. That took place in 2010. And that study identified a police station need of 76,000 square feet. It identified numerous building deficiencies and also approximate costs of $8 to $9 million just to maintain the building without even expanding it. The project was still placed on hold, and then an additional study was done in 2015. And we were able to work with the consultants at that time to bring down the size of the facility to approximately 70,500 square feet of programmable area. Consultants at that time did concur with the building deficiencies that were identified in the 2010 study. And then last year, the board recommended approval of hiring and retaining Leggett Architects and McLaren Wilson Larry, who specialize in police stations, and also Riley Construction as a construction manager. So throughout all those years, we've had many, many meetings, public meetings with the neighbors. But more recently, I'll fast forward to December last year, we had a status report with the village board. We then went to a preliminary review with Design Commission and also subcommittee of the Plan Commission. And then in January of this year, we mailed notices to over 200 property owners, held a neighborhood meeting. And then also in February had the formal Design Commission hearing and the Plan Commission public hearing, and again did that same mailing to over 200 property owners. The site, as you're aware, is constrained. It is bordered by the north with the railroad tracks. To the south is Sigwalt. This aerial identifies in yellow the existing police station that was built in 1978. and it is between the existing Village Hall and Municipal Parking Garage on the west and the new fire station on the east. As part of many of these studies, we also looked at other communities, what are the sizes of their facilities, and this was done in 2012, and you can see Palatine, Hoffman Estates, Elk Grove, and Skokie all have much smaller communities than Arlington Heights. In all but one of them, their police department is smaller, yet their facility, police station sizes are ranging from 70 to 80,000 square feet. So coming in at just over 70,000, we know the facility is right-sized. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Deputy Chief Nick Pecora, who's going to talk about some of the deficiencies within the police station right now.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. It's my pleasure to present the next 5 slides. It'll give you a little bit of a story about how the police department has not met our needs of a current police station. As you can see, as Charles just indicated, we're at 38,000 square feet, and our neighbors have built police stations that range between 70,000 and 79,000 square feet, and they have similar full-time employment. When the building was built in 1979, 1980, we had 80 employees. We now have 139 employees that call the police department home. It's not my intention to hit every bullet point and drill down, but I'm going to provide a little bit of narrative to each picture and let the picture speak for the building. The upper left-hand corner is one of our hallways in the basement. It's been appropriated for storage. We don't have any storage space left. Equipment, tickets, paper, it's in a hallway. The picture on the right, that's the men's locker room. The locker room, as you can see, had a coat rack and presumably a hat rack installed. Now it's an ancillary locker space because the locker spaces do not provide enough room for the gear that we now give to a police officer in 2017. 2 raincoats hanging there, bicycle uniforms, and you can't see very well, but that's a ballistic vest on the hat rack, drying out probably after a rain or a sweat-laden August afternoon. Lower left is our adult detective unit. We have 15 detectives that work out of that office, and they double up. You can see during a roll call briefing there that some individuals are standing and some individuals are sitting at guest chairs in the front of the room. The picture on the lower right, when I started in 1982, that was our trash and shredding room. With the implementation of computer technology in the mid-'80s, we had to find a place to call a report room. So we repurposed a trash room, and now we have technology in there. It was interesting trying to get it in there with the concrete masonry units. It was tough to get data cabling through the walls. The physical building, the envelope is starting to degrade. As Charles indicated, $8 million to bring it up to speed. The exterior facade is starting to weaken. The thermal pane windows are starting to crack, causing them to fog. A large portion of the brick facade is starting to crack and is in serious need of tuck pointing. The picture on the lower left is our sally port. That's primarily used by police agencies to bring in a squad car when there's somebody in custody. The garage door closes and then we escort the person into the lockup, which is the door in the middle of the picture in the back. You can see that we use the sally port for storage. There's 4 motorcycles in there, 6 police bicycles, there's forensic gear in the back, and an ancillary storage on the left. It presents a unique problem when you have somebody that's not cordial and there's lots of trip hazards involved, and it doesn't benefit us well to have that gear in there. The picture on the right, that is our front approach. That's the only handicap accessible point that we have in the building, and you can see the railing is starting to rot at its post. Speaking of rotting, the picture on the upper right, that's our first floor decking attached to the foundation. You can see how it's rusting, and you can see the striations there. That's water that's coming in along the foundation wall. A couple of years ago, that particular part of the building on the east wall shifted, causing us to replace the door, and Public Works had to cut up the flooring because there was a significant safety issue. The picture in the middle, that's the report room I talked about a few minutes ago. Because it was a trash room, there was limited circulation in there, so we have some ancillary air conditioning in there, and there's box fans throughout the police department. The lower picture shows one of the lavatories. It still has the original decor in it, and the plumbing itself is on its last leg. Last year, we started to smell sulfur in the building, and we found out that the ventilation stacks were cracking. And instead of venting the sewer gases out through the roof, it was venting out into the building. This picture shows, hard to see, but you can see the spaghetti in the ceiling. When we started running the technology through the building, there were no wire trays, there were no chases. So the low voltage contractor that came in popped open the 12 by 12 tongue and groove ceiling tiles and was unable to put them back. So we have numerous holes in the ceiling so the contractors can access the wires should we need another network drop. And this picture on the lower right-hand side is the last 10 feet of our roll call room. It used to be 30 feet long. As we introduced more technology and needed storage, we took the last 10 feet and built a storage cabinet. It's technology like the AEDs that you see in there, they weren't around in 1982. Portable breathalyzers, portable laser, speed control devices, technology we need to keep secured and make sure there's accountability. We had to build a storage room. Repurposed room, upper right-hand corner. When I started, that used to be the dark room in the lockup. When we used the old black and white 4x5 negatives to take booking photos, they were developed back there, and then the black and white photos were developed there as well. With the advent of digital technology, we didn't need a dark room anymore. So we plastered up the door in the lockup and cut a hole into the wall, into the hallway, and now this is our traffic unit. Around the partition there, that's the sergeant's area, and the area here in the foreground, we have 3 police officers and 7 public service officers that call that their workstation. You can see the crude ventilation system we have there, a portable air conditioner that's vented somewhere up into the ceiling, and then the exhaust is then put in front of, or the air conditioning is then put in front of the fan and then circulated around the room. The picture on the left is our second floor atrium. It just shows that the windows are starting to fog up a little bit, a little hard to see in that picture. Just more how the building is starting to degrade. And the picture on the right is our lobby. The revolving door and then the window curtains on either side of that are starting to lose their structural integrity. And when it rains, we get a lobby full of water. My last slide here is a comparison slide. In 1979, when the building was developed, we only had the standard high school lockers, if you will. And there was limited gear at the time. When you started, you were given a couple of shirts, a ticket book, a flashlight, and a hat, and told to go to work. A couple years later, as we added more gear, the locker toppers were added, and it was sufficient. But you fast forward to 2014, and when you have officers that wear multiple uniforms, this particular officer is a bicycle officer, so he or she has a bicycle uniform as well as a standard patrol uniform. And on the floor there, you have their patrol response bag, the blue box gear lockers. So there's a lot more gear that we have that cannot be accommodated by the lockers that we provide now. In the proposed building, the lockers are sufficient. They also have electricity inside because we issue each officer a radio that needs a battery charged as well as a rechargeable flashlight. And you can see the picture in the 1979 depiction where some officer has grabbed the outlet on the wall and you can see the wires sort of sneak into his locker, which is probably not up to code. But we're trying to make do with our building, and we appreciate the effort and the support of the village as we move forward with our proposed station. That concludes my presentation. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Pecora. I think he provided a great insight into the problems that we have with the building today. Very quickly, these are the project goals from the 2015 study that the board accepted to develop a cost-effective building, a utilitarian building. The architecture should complement the existing campus but be done in a very cost-effective way. Looking at ways to incorporate covered parking. There should be a firing range on the facility. It should be flexible and adaptable for future uses. These goals are on our website as part of the study, but I just wanted to highlight them again this evening. We were charged in that study in 2015 to look and see if we can use some of our existing facilities, and there are still 2 small components of this project where we are doing that. So we are currently designing and bidding renovation of a portion of the 4th floor of this building to allow for archival and long-term evidence storage in this building here. And then also off-site in the former Fire Academy building that we're now calling the Police Annex. We will be renovating that space for some seasonal vehicles, motorcycles, and also additional archival storage. That allows us to bring the square footage of the building down from that 2010 study to what we're proposing today. I want to also now talk about the variations that we need for this project. As I mentioned at the beginning, there are 3 variations. We need to meet the hardship criteria, which are highlighted on this slide. And the bottom left exhibit illustrates the parking area behind the police station. This is an existing condition. There is a very narrow area between the parking garage and the mechanical equipment, screened equipment by the garage and the railroad tracks. So we need to narrow the drive aisle in this particular area from 24 feet to 22 feet. Again, this is an existing situation. It's for police vehicles and police employees only, not the public. So we feel that is a reasonable request given the unique characteristics of this site and a unique shape. We're also requesting a waiver to not install 1 landscape island along that row of parking spaces right next to the railroad tracks. We require 1 space every 20, 1 landscape island every 20 parking spaces. There's 31 spaces here. This is the area where we will be providing on-site detention in underground detention vaults or through a pervious paver system. The little kind of thumbnail on the right shows the underground detention vault concept, and there's not sufficient clearance on top of the vault to be able to install a landscape island. There will still be a row of landscape trees along the railroad tracks as there are today. Those will be replaced. But right now this site has 0 on-site stormwater detention, and as part of this project we will be providing stormwater detention and providing some regional benefit for the neighborhoods to the south. With respect to traffic and parking, we completed a detailed traffic and parking analysis. The engineering department conducted a week-long traffic counts. Just highlights the exiting movements. The PM peak is 51 vehicles exiting during that 1-week time period, and that's the critical moment that we're looking at, especially as it relates to the main driveway. This exhibit shows the proposed footprint of the building between the existing fire station and the existing garage. The main change that people will notice will be a change in the reconfiguration of the driveway. Currently, there are 2 exit lanes and 1 inbound lane. We're proposing there be 1 exit lane and 1 inbound lane so that we can make the building a little wider and also provide for a sufficient sidewalk to go from the parking area for customers who park in the garage to come to the front door of the police department. Right now, there's about a foot-wide sidewalk, if you can call it that, by the stair tower, the municipal garage. It's not very friendly for the public who park in the garage to come to the front door of the police department. There are also numerous conflicting traffic movements for anybody entering the garage, and this actually cleans that traffic movement up when customers come to our building. This is the parking code analysis. It requires 620 spaces. We currently have 441, and we'll have 434 spaces when we're completed. It assumes all of the conference rooms, the boardrooms, the roll call room, everything is occupied all at the same time by different groups of people, which obviously in our situation does not happen. The municipal campus, as I mentioned, has 441 parking spaces. We will lose 7 with the redevelopment, maintaining 434. We've done extensive parking studies over the years. Most developers will submit 1 or 2 days of parking counts. We have parking counts going back to 2005. And in 2014 and 2016, we did week-long counts not just 1 or 2 days. So we went above and beyond in analyzing the parking situation. On the bottom line here, you can see in each scenario there were hundreds of parking spaces still available. In 2005, we had a higher parking count and higher occupancy. That was prior to the Vale Avenue Garage expansion occurring, when there was a large shift of commuters from this building to the Vale Avenue Garage. Also, keep in mind that the department, not all employees are on site at one time. The peak shift, day shift, is 60. In the most recent studies in 2014 and 2016, we took, again, a worst-case scenario. We assumed every different parking area, so visitors, employees, daily fee, they all were at maximum, even though they were at different times of the day, and we assumed that was the peak maximum, and we still had 124 and 161 vacant spaces. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Mark Rohde, who will walk through the floor plans and talk about the elevations.
Good evening, everybody. As you can see, the site plan has not changed significantly since we last presented to you a couple months ago. As Charles mentioned, we are using every bit of the site as we possibly can to fit the building on. We have rerouted the driveway into the parking garage, straightened it out and pushed it a little bit to the west, which would allow our building to expand as far to the west as we can. And we've done the same thing in the east side, the road between the police department and the fire station building. So we've expanded completely west to east. We've held it just north of the Sigwalt setback line, and we've managed to fit everything on and meet the program. The one thing I think that has really changed since we last presented to you was that we have determined, after a lot of analysis, that the existing stair tower in the southeast corner of the garage is remaining. So we had done numerous studies of using it, not using it, taking it down, et cetera. We determined it's best to leave it. So the police department staff will enter the building from that stair tower, but at the same time, there will be complete separation from the public and, doors and access and all that. So we feel that's really the only thing that's changed significantly. Do we hit? There we go. Starting in the floor plans, I'll go over these briefly, and we can certainly go back to them, but I know you've seen these before. The concept has stayed the same, where the basement's really sort of the training area, so we've got a multi-purpose training room down there. Most of the evidence is down in the basement. In the upper right corner, when we get to the first floor plan, you'll see the evidence intake, but most of the evidence is brought down through a secure elevator and stored along the south and southeast corner of the building. We've got mechanical space. The firing range is basically underneath the patrol vehicle storage, range support spaces, and storage. First floor plan, we have the patrol parking garage. We've decided to go at a 90-degree parking. That's the most efficient use of space and allows us to have the footprint minimized of the police squad parking area. As you can see, we've got the main entry, and the 3D views that Steve will present will sort of clarify that, but we have a tower element. It's shorter than the Village Hall. It sort of fits in from kind of being the middle building, so it's set down a little bit, but it's a very welcoming, inviting space. The element will be lit up at night. It'll give a different look. Like if you pull in here tonight, the police station is virtually dark. We want the police station to read as a beacon. So the front lobby that you see across the screen there, the community room and that main entry will all be lit up at night and provide a very nice environment. You can see patrol takes the left half, records to the right. We've got the booking area, all the jail cells, if you will, the Sally Port at the southeast corner. Doors are facing east to the fire station. We're going to make those a historically correct door, since that will be visible from Sigwalt Street. As I mentioned, the evidence is up in the upper right corner, and the doors are facing north. And there is a concourse that travels west to east, separates the police parking squad area from the rest of the building. And then moving up to the second floor, over the parking structure, we've got the men's and women's locker rooms with the fitness room between them, with natural light looking to the north. We've got a smaller version of that concourse upstairs, and then the administration area takes the bulk of the southwest portion of it, and the detectives or investigation area along the right side, and community services facing east towards the fire station. We've got a break room and a break area that will serve the entire facility upstairs. And you can see the space that doesn't really have any color. That's the roof of that of the lobby area below. So the tower element comes up 2 stories, and we have provided the second floor conference room in the tower, and then the rest of the area is just a 1-story space. Roof plan, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. I think I can turn it over to Steve now to kind of talk about the style and the context.
Hello, as you can see, we're trying to design a 2-story building that's going to sit between a 4-story village hall and a 1-story fire station. The massing of the fire station with the taller roofs brings it up to kind of a visual feel of about a story and a half, and the towers in the village hall bring it up, the tower feeling like 5 stories. So what we're trying to do is create a building that is complementary but contrasting just in the materiality, so that the stone and brick and roofing have similar features to the existing campus on the east and the west, but rather than give it a consistent look that makes it feel like every building is exactly a carbon copy of one another, we're creating the historic look, giving it a unique character, using the arched forms, the sloped roofs, the roof massings, and we're trying to take a building that could have been a very tall 2-story building and break it down into scale by having a 1-story lobby along the street on the south on Sigwalt, a 2-story tower, and then the building behind, which is 2 stories, the roof is sloping away to keep the volume down. I actually can't read these numbers, but I can tell you that the height of the peak of the roof is about 57, I believe, 51. We're 24 feet to the underside of the eave. We are 33 feet to the underside of the eave of the tower. And we're keeping the entire building below the height of the 2-story volume of the village hall to its west. And you can see that as you're going around to the east elevation. I actually want to go back and explain these elevations too as well. From the south, this is the view from Sigwalt. The tower is 2 stories. There's an entry in the vestibule at the bottom. There's meeting rooms on the 2nd floor, a sloped roof above. The larger arch shape that you see to the right in the south elevation is the big meeting room. It's a 1-story space with a taller ceiling. The area in between is a 1-story lobby that connects the 2 volumes, and then the 2-story, the remainder of the police station activities are in the 2-story area behind it. And there are some eyebrow windows that are bringing light into the open plan offices, which are falling behind the office windows on the south. On the east and west elevation, we're treating it similarly with the gabled roof, with the windows aligned with a symmetrical bay at each end. And so you can see the east and the west have a similar look on the in the area that's gabled. Now, as you go to a certain point beyond where it's less visible from the street, we're using more masonry in the back of the building and less stone. And on the north elevation, we're using roof volumes that are visible from afar, from the distant, from the north, and from the railroad tracks. But you can see that the simpler volume at the bottom of the drawing in the north elevation is the squad car storage garage area. So 2 views are seen from the southwest at the top and the southeast at the bottom. We're trying to keep the tower, although it's expressing itself as an entry, we're not trying to carry it too tall. We're keeping it wide and rather low. We're expressing a gabled roof on the west side, which is the left of the drawing, just next to the village hall. You can see the existing stair tower from the garage is sitting right behind it. And then as you travel down toward the east, toward the fire station, we've expressed the volume of the meeting room with the arched form. At the bottom drawing, you can see that from heading east from the meeting room, there's a sally port with its garage. We're going to do a decorative garage door so that it looks good when it's closed, and it's going to be open and closed very quickly, usually closed most of the time. And then to the right is another gable form. As you can see, the building is stepping back. The face of the building that you see is aligning with the 10-foot setback, and then the rest of the volume of the building is 15 feet beyond that. So we're trying to avoid having a tall volume right up against the setback along Sigwalt. The view from above gives you a little better sense of the way it's broken up. It's essentially a large rectangle in the center with a lower one-story volume in the front, and then two wings in the back, which are for the locker rooms and the workout area in between. We've got heavy landscaping, and the planter walls are doing more than just being decorative. We're going to have lots of plants around them. The walls will just be a backdrop, but they're also creating a security barricade without looking like a security barricade. And we've been able to prove from past projects that they've been very important in stopping certain attacks on police stations. The view from above, you can see the tall central volume in the middle, the wings coming out, which are separating the men's locker area on the upper right from the women's locker area to the lower left. And then there's a common workout area in between. You can see that the police garage is the volume at the lower right-hand corner that we're building over the top of. That allows for future expansion if needed over the top of that. And then, do you want me to keep going on landscaping, or just keep going? Okay. Briefly, we're landscaping the site fully. The setback line is the area between the paved sidewalk. Actually, a heavily landscaped area is the setback zone. And then we've recessed back the lobby a little bit from that area. We're landscaping on the east and south predominantly. And as you go around to the back, we're putting a rock garden with some planting underneath the garage edge. And then we're screening around the mechanical. The mechanical area in the back is actually not going to be tall walls, but is recessed into the ground with a grill over the top. And we're landscaping the back very heavily with a row of trees along the railroad tracks as well. Some of the amenities, we're basically taking the streetscape that exists on the two other buildings and bringing them so that it's very consistent and uniform along the front of the new police station. And we're showing some of the elements that'll be used that repeat some of those forms. And now I will let you hear from Kevin Matre, who will talk about the civil engineering and the grading for the site.
Good evening. I'd like to briefly touch on a few of the civil aspects of the design, starting here with the grading plan. The grading was basically set in order to get a finished floor of the building that is both accessible and meets the existing constraints of the site. As we spoke of earlier, it is a tight site. On either side, we have existing buildings, the railroad tracks to the north and Sigwalt to the south. Along with that, we're also maintaining drainage on the site. So we are, sheet draining away from the buildings to either stormwater inlets and sewers that lead to the detention vault in the rear, or directly into the detention vault if it's in the parking lot. That detention vault will be located in the north parking lot behind the building. It's really the only available area in order to do an underground detention vault for this site. So it'll be long and narrow up there underneath the pavement. It should be noted that the municipal campus currently does not have any existing stormwater detention or stormwater management for the site. So not only will we be meeting the MWRD and Village of Arlington Heights ordinances, we will also be providing a bit of a regional benefit by controlling that rate of release from that area. Moving to the utility plan, the site will be served by a sanitary sewer that's existing in Sigwalt. It is a combined sewer where we will provide a service to the southeast corner of the building. The water service will also come from a main that exists along Sigwalt and will travel to the northwest corner of the building. That will serve up the drive aisle between the Village Hall and the police station. All stormwater downspouts from the building will be collected and conveyed to the detention vault. And then existing infrastructure on site, gas, electric, telecom, will all be provided through the infrastructure that's currently there. Everything will be maintained to the existing campus as is. Anything that needs to be rerouted or redesigned will be. We also took a look at site circulation. Here's a couple of quick slides where we looked at both emergency vehicles and passenger vehicles. Here we have the typical movements of the ambulances that would be coming in and out of the site. This is the typical turning movements of the fire trucks coming in and out of the fire station. And then these are the anticipated movements of the police cars as they come into either the Sally Port, the garage, or the parking lot in the rear. I'll now turn it over to Chris Seifert. who will talk about the construction staging plan.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to present today. The staging plan for construction, we've sort of set it up to try to control as much of the site and take a good view and keep the operations of the campus going at all times. The biggest thing that we're going to try and that we're going to need to set up is just a staging area, offices directly across from the proposed police station on Sigwell Street. And yes, that's taking up some of the parking, but we feel it's critical that we can be there so we can see what's happening with the fire station and what's taking place in those activities. We're proposing to get radio so that we have emergency call and then people can jump out very quickly to control traffic if necessary in an emergency situation. The plan is to bring all traffic from Arlington Heights, either north or south onto Sigwell Street and then into the construction area with no traffic signs and no traffic, construction traffic allowed as you go further east on Davis Street or further south into the neighborhoods. Additional overflow parking will take place further to the east along Davis Street up until about the sign, wherever we pick that and work with staff and what that'll be. And then also in the part of the plan is to build the parking garage for the police station as quick as possible to provide some on-site staging and covered storage for the construction materials. There will be some intermittent lane closures that will be required along the westbound lanes of Sigwell Street as well as the drive aisles between Village Hall and the fire station, and we're going to do our best to try and minimize and contain those to the shortest durations as possible, but they are going to have to happen for the utilities that go in. So, thank you.
So that concludes the presentation from the team that's been working on this. We do have most of our studies and presentations on our website. This is a graphic of our website, and as I mentioned earlier, the Plan Commission did conduct a public hearing a couple of weeks ago and unanimously recommended approval of the project. I also neglected to mention that Chief Morning is here as well, along with the rest of the team to answer any questions that the board may have.
Well, thank you all. Clearly a very team-oriented project and very exciting, very impressive building, and thank you all for your involvement to this point. So questions from the board? Let me go down here to Trustee Glasgow.
This has been an outstanding presentation, Charles. I mean, you were talking about private businesses and how you exceeded anything that I've seen in probably the past 2 or 3 years for a private business. This has been very, very thorough. I'm not going to reiterate what you've already presented. I think most of the people at home have gotten to see over the past 25 minutes what we on the police station committee have gotten to look at over the past 2 to 3 years looking at this. But there's a few things I just want to make sure we talk about. You don't want to hear me drone on and on at 9:45 this evening. There's a few things that I don't think Deputy Chief Pecora hit on, and that's officer safety with regard to this building. There's a lot of officer safety issues. There's a lot of things that are not up to code. There's not a lot of things that with regard to the lockup that is not up to code. There's been some substantial changes in forensics laws which require storage forever. Computer use for solving crime, computer crimes are things which we have not even begun to touch on, which this building cannot be utilized for. And the security and surveillance of the officers are things that are incredibly important. When we sat at January 18th meeting, Nick and Charles, we talked to the residents that came in, and they didn't have any questions or any true concerns that I was made aware of during the course of the conversation. Charles, if you'd like to address that. We had approximately, about 6, 8 people?
There were 6 to 8 residents that showed up at the neighborhood meeting. Most of their questions were construction related. They wanted to make sure there was no construction traffic would go down south through their neighborhood. They had some questions about stormwater detention. They were pleased to hear that we were providing stormwater detention on site that would help, and have a regional benefit. Overall, they were very complimentary. They liked the architecture, they liked the scale of the building, the fact that it was 1 story initially before it got to a 2-story component. So it was very well received.
And I just want to say this from the architects. We interviewed you guys. You came in and made a presentation. This is incredibly well thought out by you guys. You have taken into consideration everything that the board has given you policy-wise and what we've talked about during the course of the meetings. I just want to say thank you. I think I got that in 4 minutes, so I will not say anything else unless anybody has any questions.
Trustee Tenalia.
I'll try and make mine under 5. So an important thing to reiterate that I think everybody wants to hear, and it has to do with that stormwater mitigation. Can you explain once again what's happening there now and what will be happening when it's over. I think I heard you say that currently there's no stormwater control on this particular site, but when we're done, we're going to have how much?
You will have approximately, I think it's an acre-foot of detention in the rear. So currently, you have storm sewers that do drain the site, but is not detained
It's
before.
not controlled.
Not controlled, correct.
Right.
So with this development, the disturbed area, so just the area that we're developing with the police station will now have stormwater detention provided for it in that vault in the rear. So that will be detained and held back. Actually, the Village of Arlington Heights ordinance is more restrictive than MWRD's. So we'll be holding the water back per your code and releasing it at a rate that satisfies that ordinance.
Okay, great. Thank you. You
Sure.
answered my questions. It's an issue in town here. We're spending a lot of time and money trying to figure out how to deal with some stormwater issues around town, and I just wanted the neighbors to know that we've given this, our own project, a pretty stiff criteria to solve, and you guys have done it, so great. I think what I really wanted to say was that this is a handsome building. I've got a few notes here. I think it's done in a great way without being overly detailed. It's not overdone. It's not too heroic, but it is definitely pedestrian scale. There are some buildings that you see that don't feel right when you walk up to them. This scale feels good. It looks traditional. It seems like it fits nicely in our community and on that campus. So I think the architects have done a great job with that. So great job, guys. The materials that are on this building, the brick, the stone, the roofing, they look rich in texture. But I know from being in these meetings as a representative from the board here, there's nothing about it that's wasteful. We were very careful. I know that was the goal of this entire committee, to do things without being wasteful or overdone. So again, another high mark there. Comfort. When people walk by, when people drive by, people living in the neighborhood, people who work there, people who visit there for good reasons or bad reasons, I think it's important that the place feels right. And this building, from walking my brain through these plans and walking around through these elevation visuals that the architects presented, I'm sold. I think it's going to be a very nice project. So overall, I think it's a great project with great efficiencies. It's economical. Comparatively, we've reduced the budget tremendously over the couple of years I've been working on this with the team here. And at the end, I think I just want to say thank you for allowing me to participate, to the mayor, and I've been proud to be a part of it. So thank you, guys.
Trustee Lebeds.
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to everybody, the team and everyone involved in this process. This is going to be a tremendous asset to the community. Thank you, Deputy Chief Pecora, for going through the photos with the conditions of the current building. I think when I was reading through the Plan Commission hearing testimony, I could read about it, but I thought, that's not a televised or streamed meeting. So I'm really glad you brought that up today and showed it, because it's so important to see why this is necessary. But I think it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful building and asset, and very, very functional. So thank you to all. I do have a few questions. One of them has to do with the flat portions of the roof on the second level. There was some discussion at the Plan Commission about the possibility of, since I think it's outside the fitness area or so on, maybe Charles or someone, you could address that there might be an opportunity for, you see a couple of pictures of people on here, but I don't think that's the part near the train line, but I think outside there was some discussion about whether there would be some access to this area.
Correct, Trustee Lebez. This area that I'm highlighting here, which is in kind of the northeast corner, but at the bottom of the slide, there could be access from the break area, and so there is the potential to have that be an active roof space if the budget were to allow that. This other roof area here, this is an area where there could be future expansion. The plan right now would be to design it as an alternate to allow the decking to handle an expansion. And if the budget can handle that, build it that way now, but not do anything else with the roof. It would just be a roof until if and when it were needed. If the budget didn't allow the decking to be reinforced, then we wouldn't do that. So that's the thinking on those two flat roof areas.
Okay, they sound like very wise thinking and from my perspective. And since they're flat, I assume that it's designed for drainage of rain and melting snow, because the rest of the roofs are pitched, so with the runoff. So I just wouldn't want to have anything that pooled and wound up damaging our brand-new building.
Well, I'll let the architect answer that, but yes, it should be designed so that it drains properly.
Both roofs would be flat, but we mean flat, quotes, flat. You know, there'll be either pitched, there'll be pitched insulation. We're going to keep the roof deck level, and there'll be pitched insulation and roof drains that you would see up on the roof. So in that northeast corner where Charles pointed, if we're able to do that as a roof deck, you're going to have the regular roof system with roof drains, and then there's basically a set of pavers that are on pedestals, 6, 8-inch high legs, and that's how you get your rooftop. So, but there's no joints, there's no mortar between them. The rain will just go down, and then it's on the standard roof system through the drains and out the building. The main portion, yes, there are people shown there now. We should probably take those people off, but that's future expansion. Could be rooftop. In theory, it's the same roof deck system, but right now, that would just be, again, you'd see multiple roof drains in there, and the insulation would be pitched to the drains.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the construction process, the staging part of it, and there was discussion about possible westbound lane closures on Sigwald. Will this require any vehicle detours?
It is quite possible. We're going to try and work with staff to minimize that whenever necessary, but there are certain utility tie-ins that we have to make into the sewers and the streets that Kevin talked about that are 8 to 9 feet deep, so I can definitely see some lane closures, but we're really trying to avoid having to do full lane closures on Sigwell because of the fire station and the access, so we're really trying to avoid that if we can.
Okay, and also too, I'd be concerned about the residents who live in the area so that they have access to their properties. So I would hope there'd be some notification
Yes,
on the adjacent residents if there's a closure.
absolutely. We'll be in their backyard so they can come knock on the door, absolutely.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks. I'd also like to ask about the straightening of the drive aisle into the parking lot, because when I looked, I want a little more explanation to how it's changing, because when I look at the pictures, not being an architect or an engineer or any of those things, I'm having a little trouble seeing how much different it is going to be.
It's a good question. So on your left is the existing driveway configuration, and I'll highlight with the cursor here. So this lane right now is a southbound and eastbound lane, and then this lane is a westbound lane. And really what it functions is you get two vehicles in either of these lanes, and then nobody else can get through. So it's a very, very short length for a turning movement. So you only have about two vehicles before anyone else gets backed up into the site. On the right, this is how we're proposing it, where there would be one straight, clean exit point, and you would turn west or east. We'd be encouraging a west or east movement, not a south movement, although that would not necessarily be precluded. And then what it does is it does a couple of things. It allows the building to be wide enough to fit all the elements within the building that we need to. It allows for a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk, if I can get this cursor to work, that runs along here back to this point. So any customers who park in this area, they can come across the drive and down this way to the front of the building, or they could come across the drive here and walk along the sidewalk. Right now, there is no sidewalk. They have to walk in the drive aisle.
Right.
And at this point, where that crosswalk is, at this point is the stair tower, the existing garage, and there's about a foot space between the stair tower and the curb, so nobody can walk along there without going in the actual oncoming traffic lane. So that does a number of things. It allows for better pedestrian connection, access to the police station. It also cleans up the access point into the building. So if you look at the exhibit on the left, when customers come into our building, and I see it many, many times, they get to this point and they get confused because there's a drive here to the right that goes to police, but it's not really clearly delineated. There's another two-way drive at this point, as well as the drive aisles to the west for the actual parking garage. And now, under the new proposal, you come in, you've got a nice clean access point all the way through to this point, and this is an exit only. So it's very obvious that they can't turn right at that point. So it really helps customers coming to the building, especially the first time, or if they're elderly and they're coming to see senior services or health services rather, and they're unfamiliar with the garage. This really makes access into the garage a little smoother for them.
Okay, thank you. Now I understand it a lot better. I appreciate that explanation.
Thank you.
And I have one last question, and it has to do with the lobby lights and the concern about having it look inviting and so forth. But on the flip side, is that going to create any spillover or any effect on the residents that live nearby?
And I'm glad you mentioned that. That was a question that some of the residents had about lighting, and we indicated to them that, you know, the lighting would be sensitive. It's not going to be Las Vegas or anything like that. It will be, while it will be internally illuminated, but it will be done very tastefully so that it does not provide glare or spillover onto the residents to the south by any means. That's not the intent of that.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Trustee Farwell.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I too would like to thank the committee that put this together, and I'd like to thank Trustees Glasgow and Tenalia for your generous donation of time in helping oversee and being the board's liaison through this entire process. I can't think of two trustees that could have done a better job, and I really thank you for that. I'd like to thank especially, well, first of all, Tom Keeney, who has not been mentioned yet this evening, but he's been instrumental on trying to figure out the financing part of this. I don't want, and he's not here this evening, but I do want to, personally recognize him, because if it weren't for him thinking outside the box and being able to take advantage of our bond ratings and retiring things early and kind of gearing up for something like this, we wouldn't be able to do this. So I'd like to thank him even in his absence. Charles, this has got to be the best presentation I have seen in, well, I can't tell you how long. You hit everything, and it was fantastic. I don't have a single question on something this major. You've answered everything, and I have a feeling this is why this building is so successful. The architects are great, but you've been driving the bus, and it proves to the caliber. You've probably been seeing, I've been smiling through this whole thing. I've been on here for 16 years. Well, first of all, I want to say the police department has been very patient in seeing this new development come to fruition. Even when we were in the old Village Hall and we were talking about, can we build both and which one needs to go first, that was a very, very tough decision. I remember it was in a committee of the whole with the prior chief, and it was a very difficult decision. But again, we had to prioritize, and then of course with the downturn in the economy, that even delayed it even more, and here we are. So I'm just thankful that we're here, and thankful for the police to be patient and still serve the community the way they do. I've been here 16 years, Charles, and I only have 5 meetings left, and this was like Christmas to me, man. To see you up here asking for 3 different variations has been like Christmas. To hear you ask for, a reduction in parking by 30%, just outside of the downtown district.
That's a no.
I've been smiling through this whole thing, and then of course the saving the best for last, the request for relief for the landscape islands for 1 per 20 cars, linear cars. To me, that was, it has been, for a guy that loves, irony. This is rich. So thank you so much. But I think the requests are, obvious, needed, and I think it's looking forward to seeing this built. Thanks a lot, Charles.
Trustee Sedor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make it quick. Charles, can you go back to the way at the beginning, the goals that we were trying to accomplish with the police station? And while you're doing that, there was one better presentation, and that was One Arlington, when they did the flyby thing of their building. Remember that?
Yeah, that was very
topped
good.
this one, but this one's a close second.
We didn't have the flyby in our
No
budget. though,
flyby.
so.
Zone number 14 is where I'm interested in. We had discussed briefly lead certification, whether we need to pay for it or not, what components we can do, how many boxes we can check off, if grant money is available to meet as many sustainable elements as we can. I'd like to, maybe one of the architects can address that and see where we at on that track.
Okay, maybe Mark, if you could.
We are completely on board with all sustainable design techniques. At this point, we've not been charged with seeking LEED certification, but the mechanical systems, everything is going to be, exceeding today's current standards. We're using rather local materials in terms of where the brick is coming from. We've looked at stone quarries. We've got 2 stones that we're very happy with. One's in Wisconsin, 180, 200 miles away. One's in Missouri, thank you. They're all close. We're using locally made materials. One thing we've just come up with, I think I can say this, we're exploring an option for the detention. And we don't have an answer for you yet, but we kind of decided to go with those detention vaults early on. And recently, I don't know, had an epiphany or something, and we're also studying the ability to use pervious pavers. It's probably, I'm speaking for Chris here, probably going to be a budgetary issue. It could be more, it could be less. We don't know. But last week, we've determined that in the footprint of the parking area that we've shown, the angled parking, Kevin has determined it's doable to do pervious paver, but there'll still be a slow release rate. But instead of concrete vaults, you'd have 8 or 9 feet of 3-inch stone and let it trickle down. So that's something we're kind of excited about, that option. But again, I think we've all heard we've got a budget. We are sticking to the budget. And if it's over, we don't even consider it. And if it's the same or under, we're going to give it serious consideration. Other than that, like I said, everything, local materials, we're doing construction techniques that we think will speed up the construction process and allow for less waste. It's going to be a steel frame building, and then, it's not exterior load-bearing walls. So we've done a lot of sustainable research, but at this point, we have not been charged with seeking LEED certification. Still not off the table at all. That's really, well, Charles tells us to do, we'll do it, so. But other than that, I think we've done everything we can.
Mr. Eklund.
Just to add to that a little bit, we absolutely, in terms of the mandate, the action verb is explore. And I can tell you, we absolutely spent a lot of time looking at different ways to do things in a more green manner. One of the long conversations we had is whether to look at geothermal heat as a real potential option. We really spent a lot of time on it. In the end, we found that we didn't feel it was going to be cost-effective or particularly a good fit with this site. But we really did. The team has done a great job of identifying those items. This is a tight budget for the type of building that we're building, and so, but we are trying to keep those things on the table as long as we can in the process. But it is, like any project, a balancing act between the different other components that we're looking for.
The geothermal was intriguing, but there's an awful lot of wells to be pounded into the ground, and didn't think the neighbors were going to like that. So we explored it, as Mr. Reckles said, but we decided not to proceed that way.
And I will add, as part of the team, Public Works are a very important part of this, and they have had some discussions with Commonwealth Edison about some grants that may be available for certain type of fixtures and things of that nature. We haven't got to the interior design yet, so that's ongoing. We are also exploring the possibility of some recycled ash lumber that Public Works has saved at the annex, and if it's cost effective to mill and use in the building, we're exploring that. So we're in the early stages of that. Again, it's got to meet the cost effective part of this equation as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
I've been holding off calling on Trustee Rosenberg because he's got a long list of questions, and I was hoping that some of them would already be answered, but Trustee Rosenberg.
All
All right, thank you. Thank you to everybody. Kevin, a couple questions for you. So as far as mentioned about permeable pavers, I don't know if we consider those as far as for the front walk and the sidewalks around the area too?
You know, we are using them in the front as a decorative feature. They'll match the existing walk that's out there in front of the village hall and the fire station. So that will be a brick paver walk. Yeah, that's really shown on the landscape plans in more detail, but that will be a brick paver walk, not part of a stormwater management feature. The brick pavers that we would be doing would be in the rear in that parking lot. The vault, which would go away, would be replaced with stone beneath the pavers. We still need to use the same area. It's the only spot we have where we can dig that deep and store the water. So it would stay there in the rear parking lot. You'd have pavers back there, and then it'd be a subsurface aggregate that we would use the voids between the stone for the stormwater.
In the case where you have a massive rain, you mentioned that the permeable area to take the place of it, would it still accomplish the same thing where you had a massive rain?
The sizing of the vault or underground stone would be for a 100-year storm event. So you would be able to take in up to a 100-year event, which is a pretty large storm. Anything beyond that would then go overland along the east side of the building between the fire station and the police station. So there is what we call an emergency overland flow route. So if the vault or the stone were to fill all the way up in a very, very large storm event, the water would then go overland, make its way to the street, and then on its way down towards the regional detention.
And then in this village hall, we had issues with soil and water, things like that. So we've determined that none of that exists there.
You know, the borings came back with a groundwater table that was low enough to allow us to do these type of improvements in the rear, yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Charles, from the standpoint of that community room that we're putting in the police station, if there's an overflow need from the standpoint of Village Hall, will that be used in that case, or could it be used in that case?
It could be.
Okay.
It's totally secure. The remainder of the building is totally secure from that community meeting room, so it can be used, for various events if it's necessary. Yes, and that's really the intent of it. Right now, the police training room's on the second floor, and anybody can kind of walk right up into the building. It is used for police training academy and things like that, Crime Stoppers and things like that, and this new meeting room would take that place.
And roll call will be conducted in the patrol area?
Correct. I'll ask Nick
Yes,
to
you can
answer
just
that.
answer. You don't have to come up. You could have just said yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And from the standpoint of, did we ever decide if we're going to do gated or not gated as far as the Sally Port? How's that going to be protected from the standpoint of cars going in there on that east side there?
So we have not felt that it's necessary to gate the entire police station at this point. We are looking at providing conduits to be able to install that at a future date if it was necessary on the northwest portion of the site and on the southeast portion of the site. The Sally Port, the doors, will be closed, other than when somebody's going in and out. So they would not be left open.
And then from the standpoint of security, I assume the roof area is all secure or whatever?
Yes.
So somebody access?
Yes, so, the cell area will meet all the security standards, so you can't, somebody couldn't escape and get through the roof or the ceiling or anything like that.
Okay. And last question. From the standpoint of the entrances, are there two entrances, one on the west and one on the south? Or is it just that glass on the west side and the true entrance is on the south side?
So there is,
Like right there.
yeah, so the main entrance for the public and even police personnel could enter at this point.
Yes.
There is also an entrance that will be behind the stair tower that will be fenced and secure coming from the police parking area that's at the back of the building, and that's on the first level. Come into a secure vestibule before you enter the building. Police personnel could also enter on the second level through the existing stair tower, again into a secure vestibule into the building.
So are you saying the public can enter from the garage
The only
area?
place the public could enter would be at this point here at the front.
So is there a real need to, I don't know what the cost is, to have that side the way it is on the west side, decorated that way?
Right here?
Yes.
We feel it's an important design feature for a couple of reasons. One, to get light and visibility into the building, but also that's the area where the front desk is, so they have direct visibility out of the building as well.
Okay. Just trying to save money. All right, thank you.
Trustee Blackwood.
Just one question. When it comes to security, I really like the idea of having the barrier walls, but I'm not exactly sure how they function, how deep they are. I mean, is it just a deterrent, or are they probably 2 to 3 feet deep, all stone? Just a quick...
If I could, we try not to, for the security features of the building, go into too much detail in public.
Okay. Could I get that information after the
We'd be happy to
meeting?
fill you in on some of that, one-on-one
Okay.
later.
And on the barrier wall, on the far east side, will there be one, or is the one just in front of the far end of this building the last one?
So this is the last one at the east end.
Okay.
Then you have the access driveway.
And so there isn't any entrance into the building on that side by the access drive then?
There's right here, there is a bailout entrance and exit for anybody coming to the building to post bail. That's
Okay.
the only entrance, and that will be secure and monitored as well.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Scaletta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make it quick. Appreciate all the work that the committee did, including trustees Glasgow and Senalia. Deputy Chief Pecora, I'm glad that you, as much as I've seen all the pictures and we've all taken tours of the police department, I was fortunate enough last year to take the Citizens Police Academy with my wife, and in the very beginning, I was kind of anonymous. Nobody knew that I was a trustee, and it was just amazing watching all the attendees of the class go through the building and just marvel at the conditions that the officers were working in, and many felt very sad for them. At the same time, kind of the line of Trustee Farwell, that this has been a long time coming. I'm not only proud that we're making this, we're taking this next step, but at the same time that we made a decision many years ago to only make the absolute necessary repairs to the building. So there are a lot of issues that the current police force and staff have to live with, and so I thank them for their patience. I'll thank the neighbors in advance for their patience, and urge the construction team to be the best neighbor that you can be, and not disrupt the lives of the neighbors. I hope that we're continuing to look for grant funding wherever we can. And I did sit through the Design Commission meeting. I really wanted to kind of hear the process of how that works, especially when the village is the petitioner. And the team that was there, it's amazing the detail that they got into, and all of the things that they think about when they're building this, and I was quite impressed. I mean, they even talked about making sure that no moisture was being trapped up at the top part of the building, and so I think it's a very well thought out plan. Appreciate everyone's time. Looking forward to the future of having a new police station.
Trustee Tenali.
Just two really quick points. Charles, maybe, and Randy, before they get thrown off the table or abandoned due to budget, I would love to know what the actual extra cost will be to reinforce that roof to make it a suitable candidate for expansion down the road. Now, I know that means extra bar joists, and I know that means some extra work in there, but having that available down the road is probably wise if we can at all find a way to do it. So just let us know. I think the board would like to know what that number is.
We do plan on bidding it as an alternate, so
Yep.
we'll have those numbers.
And then same goes for what trustee Sedor asked about, the stormwater detention in the back. There's a cost to building that big vault underground, and then there's a cost to the world of just dumping that water into the system. So if we can percolate it down through that stone, I'd love to know what that delta is, how much more it is before we say. So will that too be an alternate on the plans, or is that going to be sifted out ahead of time?
Yes.
So we'll have that, both of those, and if it's over budget, we can all discuss whether or not either of those two items are worth going forward with. Great, thank you very much.
Well, all of my questions have been answered, so we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Who made the motion?
I would love to
Okay.
make that motion.
Let's have trustee Tenalia, and seconded by trustee Lebeds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, again, congratulations to all of the members of the team involved. We still have a long way to go in terms of final initial construction and final occupancy. And so we just pray for good weather and safety for all concerned in the construction process. But again, thanks to everyone involved for keeping us on the timeline and on budget so far, and hopefully we can continue that track record as we go forward in the next year and a half to 2 years. So congratulations again, and thanks to everybody for all their hard work.
Thank you very much.